Hi, my name is Rich Kettler. Welcome to Starry Night Guitars. I've been playing guitar for about 55 years and dabbling with jazz guitar since my college days. I went to school in New Orleans, Louisiana in 1980. I first was going to be a jazz major on guitar until I got to school. And it's like the clouds parted and then I really understood what it was going to entail and I freaked out. You know, I could play a little bit, I could solo some, I could read music. That's what got me into school. But then when I started studying with my teacher and I realized what that would entail, it's like it would take my whole life to develop these skills. And I decided I went into music education. But I've continued to play since then. So I just wanted to share some of the things that I've gone through on my musical journey that I've learned over time, and maybe they'll help you out. So in no particular order. Number one, technical limitations. As I said, I came up or started college in 1980, but even before that, late 80s, I discovered Chick Corea and his great band, Return to Forever. And the guitar player in there was Al Di Meola. If you're not familiar with him, check him out. Monster guitar player. And what Al did, I believe what he does, is when he picks, everything is alternate picking, down, up, down, up, down for everything. And he plays blazingly fast. Well, I very quickly realized I could never play like that. You know, that was not my thing. So instead of investing a lot of time in trying to play fast, I fortunately came to the realization, I'm just going to do what I can do and try to be as musical as possible. I've heard guys that can play, and ladies that can play fast and say something in their music, but I've heard some people that try to play fast just for fast sake, and the music says nothing to me. So I wanted to focus on just being musical, and that's what worked for me. So I'd encourage you to do that. You know, figure out what you can do and can't do, and I guess lean towards your strengths. Number two, picking style. Again, I kind of just touched on this. Al Di Meola, everything was alternate picking. And coming up, I thought, well, that must be the way to go. And I remember I got in college again in the top jazz band, and the very first semester we had a song by John Tropea, who was a New York-based guitar player. And right away, the very first line of the song, it was this awkward line that he wrote, kind of very weird the way it lays out on the guitar. And I could not do it alternate picking. I think that line went like this. A little slower. And the way I played it, instead of down, up, down, up, down, up, I went down, down, down. See? The whole descending part, I did all down picks. A short commercial. And looking at analytics on YouTube, it says that most people that look at my videos are not subscribed. So I just ask you, please, if you find any value in this video or the stuff on my channel, I'd ask you to please consider liking it or even subscribing to my channel. It'd be a big help. Thanks so much. Again, in picking style, I just say do what works for you. What I've discovered over the years is I think I have a very light touch on guitar. You'll see some people picking very hard or big, thick picks and digging in and breaking strings. I hardly ever break strings. I can't even think. Last time I broke a string was when I was playing professionally back in the 1980s. What I tend to do, I think, is turn the guitar louder and play with a very light touch. And I think I've acquired that. Part of my personality, I'm kind of more introverted and kind of withdrawn and quiet. So even playing in front of people, I'm always kind of guarded. Where a lot of guitar players, you know, people say, hey, you got to turn down. Or, you know, make the solo shorter. I was more, people were like, hey man, turn up, you can't hear you, it's not loud enough. I was kind of reticent and kind of holding back. You know, not your typical guitar player. What I found that worked for me, I found people that I was drawn to their playing style or their sound. Just to name one, Matt Otten, O-T-T-E-N. I think he's from the Netherlands, I'm not sure. The way I discovered him, I'd been to the NAMM show one year, this was probably 10 years ago, and I saw a guitar company called Peerless. And they had a lot of really nice guitars. At the time, I was kind of on the quest for a semi-hollow body. And they had a really pretty guitar. I even forget what it's called, but for a while I was very infatuated with this guitar. And going to their website, I believe that's when I discovered Matt. I think he's endorsed by them. He plays one of their big hollow body jazz guitars. But watching him play, what I was really drawn to is as he picks, his picking hand, you barely see any motion at all. Just such economy of motion, and yet he would get this beautiful sound. Next thing I said that I've always found challenging on guitar is the swing feel. If you're going to play jazz, and like traditional jazz where it's swing music. So I'm not talking about after Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. So from the 70s on, we had fusion or jazz rock mixing. Then a lot of that music, instead of the swing eighth notes, became straight eighth notes. So I'm talking music that still plays with swing eighth notes. That can be hard to do on guitar because a lot of guitar players, not all, but lots of us come up as rock players. In the rock music, almost everything is da 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 da, right? Straight eighth notes. So if you've not played that, it can be really kind of tough to catch on to that sound. What I would encourage you to do is just isolate your picking instead of trying to play whole lines or figures, maybe even single notes, or do scales really slow. Also do a lot of listening. I just found listening helped a bunch. For me, I had the benefit as a kid, I was a horn player. So I played trumpet in school jazz bands and then played in the Marine Corps. And so I had all this that I brought when I moved to guitar or focused primarily on guitar. All this musical knowledge that I've gained from other experiences all benefited me in my journey. Next thing I would say is some things don't lay well on the guitar. Some jazz things. Remember I was playing, I think it was Blues for Alice, I'm not sure. But I find that some tunes, jazz standards, it's like songs in the Great American Songbook, or songs by famous jazz artists, particularly people that are sax players, do not lay particularly well on guitar. That can be very challenging. So I mentioned earlier about picking style. I found playing some of those things, I couldn't find a good place to play it on the neck. I moved from position to position, and still there were challenges in my picking hand that I had to modify to get it to work. But just know going in that some of the stuff you'll listen to doesn't always translate well onto the guitar. And finally, I would say just find your own sound. Over time, as I said, I've been playing like 55 years, and I'm I'm nobody. I'm just a guitar player, just some old guy. But I think over time, I have kind of fallen into my own sound, and just what's comfortable to me. And I'd say embrace that. Find what are your strengths. Now, if you're a really young player, yeah, you want to, this is your playing field. You don't want to say, well, I'm really good at this, but I suck at this. So let's keep increasing this and let this continue to suck. No, you want to, as much as you can, all of your elements of playing, you want to increase them so you're proficient in different areas. Again, if you're young and you're just starting your career, it's great if you can solo, but if you can't read music, you might lose opportunities. Someone brings you into the studio to play, put a chart in front of you and like, oh man, I can't read. All those opportunities are gone, right? So you want to read, you have to play with good time, good feel, play in the pocket. You got to be able to solo. You got to be able to comp behind people. You need to understand harmonic information. All this stuff you got to have together. But as you get down the road, you're going to start to see, maybe this is my strength. I want to bring these other things along, but this is kind of where I am, and this is where I'm most comfortable. And I'd encourage you just to try to find your way. Listen to other people. I mentioned Matt, but I love Pat Metheny. I love John Scofield, who are like night and day difference, right? Pat Metheny plays these beautiful melodies and compositions. I love his soloing, very melodic. Scofield's much funkier and angular, and yet I love what he does. I don't sound like either one of those guys. I love Larry Carlton. I borrowed stuff from him. Lenny Breau, on and on. I can name dozens and dozens of guitar players that I've listened to and love and took little bits and pieces here and there and here and there. Not that I sound like any of them, but I've benefited from all of them, listening and stealing what I can, because that's what they did as well. I remember with Pat Metheny, if you hear in interviews he does, he said he came up in Kansas City or just outside Kansas City, but got to play with pros in Kansas City as a young teenager. And they made it very clear to him, because he was like a Wes Montgomery clone. He was totally into Wes. And they're like, hey man, that's not cool. You got to find your own sound. You can't just, ape what Wes has already done. And Pat then dug in to pursue, and he found his own sound. He has a very unique sound, right? Almost instantly recognizable, as Scofield is as well. And I've heard Metheny go off on that on other players that just try to copy other people. So as much as I love his stuff, I don't want to sound like him. I don't even know that I've ever attempted to really find my sound. I just have maybe kind of fallen into it. So if any of this is helpful, I hope you can benefit from it. And I wish you all the best. Be true to yourself. Enjoy the journey. God bless.